topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. Join your host, who is a multiple #1 international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer. She's the founder of Genuinely-You and has 30 years experience of helping people step into their genuine, authentic power. And now, here is Gina Gardner, your host of Leadership for Life.
Hello there and welcome to the show today. Leadership for Life. It's a really important theme, as you know, that's very, very close to my heart. As individuals, we bring all of our experience, our expertise, our skills, our enthusiasm, our creativity to the situation. And as individuals, we have enormous power to make change. Sometimes even the smallest thing that we take for granted can make a huge impact on other people or on the environment. But, you know, it always strikes me when I'm running a work session or I'm working with leaders that when you talk about real power, that's the power when we come together. Because if you look at the collective IQ, EQ, the collective skills, the collective experience and creativity, solution finding that a group who are working together can create, it's something far more than the sum of the parts. Because it's when we spark one another off, it's when we support and challenge one another in a constructive way, when we truly collaborate, that magic happens. And my guest today is a great friend, Louise Richardson, who runs an amazing charity in Scotland. We're going to be talking about the power of collaborative working. But before we do, I want to spend a little bit of time thinking about in your personal life, within your family, within your team at work, how closely do you work together? Let's talk about the family. You know, those families who are able to come together to sort things out, to work together, to play together, laugh together, cry together, are so powerful. But often when I think back to my time as a principal and when I work with clients, there seems to be in many families a disconnect between parents and children, or parents and parents, or children and children, and they don't work collaboratively as a group. What often happens is one person takes responsibility for the whole family and they end up being a bit of a drudge. They see themselves as a doormat. And I can remember going back to a time when I was a principal, when a mother came in and she had 4 children, and the children ranged in age from 11 to 20. And she arrived in my office and she sat on the chair and she looked grey and absolutely exhausted. And I said to her, you know, how are you? And she said, I don't know how to cope anymore. I am so tired and I'm running around all the time and I don't seem to get anything done. And I asked her, well, you've got children who are old enough to help. What do they do in the house? And she looked at me as if I'd come from Mars. And what do you mean, what do they do in the house? Well, I said, do they help around the house? Do they make their own bed? She said, no. I said, do they help you with tasks around the house? She said, no, I do it all. I said, tell me about meal times. And she said, well, they all like something different, so I end up cooking 4 meals. And I said to her very gently, you are training your children to use you as a doormat. And as far as I can see, you haven't got doormat stenciled on your forehead. You are their mum, and of course you want the best for them. But do you really think that you are doing the best by doing everything for them? Your family is a form of collaboration if you choose it to be. surely by now they are of the age where they need to be playing their part. Age appropriate, of course. Not only that, how are you preparing them for further, for when they leave the nest, when they go out to work, when they go to university or college, when they have a home of their own? And she thought about it for a moment and she started to cry. And I could understand the overwhelm, because suddenly there was the realization that actually the only person who was going to be able to change this was her. And so I suggested that she had a family council, that they sat down together and she explained to them that she was exhausted and that there needed to be some very different ground rules in the house. And the ground rules were that of collaboration, working together, that everybody ate, and so everybody had a responsibility to help. And so part of the early part of the journey was teaching the children how to cook, how to use the washing machine, how to operate within that collaboration and do their part. So peeling the vegetables, or for the older ones, taking it in turns to cook a meal a week so that the pressure was taken off her. Prior to this conversation, not only had she done all of the washing and ironing, and you might argue that that's a mother's role, but the children just dropped their clothes when they took them off, and she went round the bedrooms picking the clothes up. So the new rule was, if you put your things in the washing basket, then I will wash them. If they're not in the washing basket, they won't get washed. And it was time for the children to make their own bed. Even at 11, being able to make their bed, perhaps some help putting clean sheets on them and putting a clean duvet on, but perfectly able to make their bed during the week, when actually it was just a question of straightening the bottom sheet and putting the duvet over. And I suggested to Mum that she came and saw me in about 2 or 3 weeks to tell me how things were going. When Mum finally came back, she looked very different. She was smiling, and she said there'd been some hiccups, but actually it was working very well, and that they were enjoying cooking as a family, as a collaboration. They were enjoying doing things together, and that they had recognized that actually it was time for them to do their bit. Now, that's just one small example, and some of you listening or watching this may say, well, that's not truly a collaboration. Collaboration happens in business. But I'd say collaboration happens in any relationship. You collaborate with other people, and that means you need shared values, and you need to have a shared agenda where everybody knows what their role is and what's expected of them. Going back to the parent, one of the conversations we had was around unconditional love. And unconditional love, and I believe it works in the business context too, is not about being a doormat. Unconditional love means that you expect the best from somebody else and that you want it for them, so you have to help them that by having that expectation of them and holding them to account if they don't come up with the goods. And I can, when I had my 100 staff, because they knew I really cared for them, that there was unconditional love, I could give quite challenging feedback because they knew it came from a place of wanting the best for them rather than just having a go. But think about it. If you're in business, if you're an entrepreneur, creating collaborations within your company or with other people outside your company, I believe is the way forward. And after the break, we're going to go for a break in a moment, I'm going to introduce Louise, and we're going to be talking about collaborative working and why she believes it's so important and how she uses it in her charity. And we're just going to see where the discussion takes us. So don't go away. We'll be back right after the break.
You have been listening to Gina Gardner on Leadership for Life. We'll be back after this quick break. Want to get the best out of life personally and professionally? Are you ready to step into a life which excites and fulfills you? Well, the right place for you is Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. We will share with you stories from inspiring people, a wide range of guest experts, and lots of practical strategies to help you get the very best out of your personal and professional life. Leadership for Life is a radio and TV show focused on helping you live a happier, more successful, and fulfilling life. Join international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer, Gina Gardner, live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Become the leader of your own life. Gina Gardner's #1 international best-selling book, Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success, and Fulfillment, provides you with the foundational principles on which to become the best leader of your own life. It's available as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and as an audio from genuinely-u.com, or also from Amazon. Every one of the principles have been proven to work for the countless people who have used them, including the author. Now, let's put them to work for you. If you're ready to discover your true leadership life design, accelerate your journey with an invitation to join Gina for Leadership for Life VIP Day. Choose your journey of self-discovery where Gina will help you navigate your way to happiness, success, and fulfillment. To find out more, email Gina at genuinely-u.com. Welcome back to Leadership for Life. Here is your host, Gina Gardner.
Hello there. I'd like to welcome Louise Richardson, but before I do, let me tell you a little bit about her. She's worked as a nurse for over 30 years, working in different parts of healthcare, from intensive care to being a health visitor, working with vulnerable families, mums and dads, to help them navigate parenthood. Parenthood's pretty difficult, isn't it? Because kids don't come with a manual. Louise has worked with children and young people for most of her working life and sees the value in ensuring that they believe in themselves and to give them a greater sense of control and autonomy over how they can work with their feelings. Louise believes in kindness being a superpower, a gift we all have within us that's free, life-changing, and can positively impact our smaller and wider communities. So without more ado, let me welcome my great friend, Louise Richardson.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on your show. And you look delightful as always, Gina.
Oh, thank you very much. Flattery gets you everywhere. So share with us a story of how you come from being a nurse to running a charity, and tell us about the charity.
I think I've always been interested in how people operate as individuals and together. And I think what I notice is I've always noticed that if you treat people with kindness and compassion, you always get the best out of them, whether you are treating them because they are seriously ill in intensive care, and you usually work with their families, or you're working as a health visitor, and the complexity around family life, depending on how that is. And then latterly, I was operating a bit like yourself, big teams in care homes. So I've always been around people. And I guess this opportunity came at a time where I was thinking I want to do more to pay back to the community. I want to explore that, how we can develop kindness as part of what we do, how we do it, who we are, and lead something that I had, I suppose, autonomy over. Because anybody listening or watching this will realize that when you work for big companies like the NHS or big, private companies, that you sometimes have very little autonomy of how you deliver services, because there's so many people you've got to go through. And I think I was at a stage in my life where I felt, I want to do this differently. I don't want to be a leader like there are examples that I've seen, and most of those were poor examples, and there were examples I didn't want to emulate. And there were very few examples that I thought, yeah, that's exactly how I want to do it. So I think this opportunity came at a time where I wanted to explore that we could work differently, or I could work differently, and really just allow different outcomes to happen and not be so controlling over it. Sometimes you ought to let it land a little bit and go, right, okay, this may be not what I was expecting, but it's okay. We're gonna work together and we're gonna work through this. So I think during my time at AbSafe, which has been around 2.5 years, we've had lots of opportunities to let things land and to work them or rework them or work with people like yourself, because you know I adore you anyway, Gina. And
Thank you.
and the message that you give people, it's invaluable. But you then try to find your own tribe, however that looks. And so kind people want to be with other kind people because we know that works. And I work with kids and I tell them it's a superpower. It is a superpower, but ultimately it's free. And I think people don't see kindness as it's also, it's free, but it's a freedom. It allows you a lot more energy and a lot more mind space to figure out things, because you're not in that negative, woe is me, or I really dislike that person. Once you kind of get out of that mindset, there are opportunities. So I think it's that's definite shift from that negative, stuck in to like, okay, this isn't what I thought, or this isn't what I thought was going to happen, but let's see what we can do with what's right in front of us at the moment and be more present with it.
So tell me about the actual charity, because you've got quite an interesting focus, haven't you, as a charity?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, actually. So we are technically a health and safety charity. So we educate children and young people around health and safety and risk. So it's a bit between an escape room and, I don't know if you had it anywhere else, but we have something called the Crystal Maze, where you go into a room and you learn some things and then you move to another room. Nobody gets hurt in this, by the way. They can leave at any time. So I want to reassure people. But really, it's to say to kids, you're at this age now where you can make different decisions. And in the UK, kids transition, or young people transition from primary school to high school around 10, 11, 12, depending on where they live in the country. And they've got to start thinking for themselves. And I think it's more vital now, because we're not allowing children and young people to think for themselves. The story you told of the mum with 4 kids, I've got 4 kids. And, because I worked, they had to learn to do things. Yeah. They have to learn to be resilient in certain aspects of their lives, and neither one way or the other is better. But I guess we're very much doing a lot more for young people. They're very rarely unoccupied. Whether that's the fact they've got a device in front of them, or they're going to scouts or swimming or football, and so there's not an opportunity for them to really explore what it feels like to be unoccupied and how they work with those feelings. So part of what AbSafe do is one of the sets we talk about mental well-being and resilience. We don't talk about mental ill health, because kids know what mental ill health is because they hear it all the time. And I think we need to change the narrative. And then we're developing, obviously, the water safety app and the water safety game. And we're trying to make sure that we're reaching as many people as we can. But fundamentally, the outcome always is, can we save a life with this action that we're doing? So in this cohort of kids that come, are we able to save somebody's life? So at the end of the sessions, we always say, have you learned something to save your life today? And 98% of the young people say yes. And that's kind of our outcome. So we kind of get involved in stuff to make sure that in different ways that we can say to young people, you've got this. You can figure this out. We're going to give you some information, but you definitely can do this. Because I think we are delivering a misservice to young people by not trusting them to make decisions.
It's interesting, isn't it? I had many a conversation with parents who said to me when they their children first came to the school, you were pushing them too hard. You expect too much of them. And I said, well, why don't you just watch and wait and see what happens? And pretty well without exception, they would come back and say, I didn't think they could do that. And I think we underestimate ourselves, and we certainly underestimate young people in terms of what they are able to achieve, not only as individuals, but one of the things that I think about your organization, and so often in the real world, if you like, is that when you give people, and adults are just big children, and sometimes adults are more childish than children, if you give them the opportunity to work together, and you give them some ground rules that they all understand and that they all engage in, magic happens. They come up with some amazing solutions.
I mean, I'm still convinced that a 9-year-old has the answer to global warming, and we just haven't asked the right question, and we haven't asked the right 9-year-old. And I think because their brains are brilliant, and this is a mantra we get the kids to live with. You know, your mind's magnificent, your brains are brilliant. And
Sorry, hold on. You speak very quickly, and there'll be people who don't quite get the accent. So, and what
I'm
you
really
just
sorry,
said
right? So what
is
you say
really
to them,
important.
your minds are magnificent and your brains are brilliant, because they don't hear that. They don't know that their brain is a muscle, and it's almost begging to be sponged out, you know. But we traditionally, in lots of countries, educate kids in a very, very linear way sometimes. But actually, some kids will be better at that and not better at that. But we tend to benchmark that if you're not good at the sciences, then you're not good at school. So there's a lot of people, even if you speak to people that have left school, that they still go, "I wasn't very good at school." I said, "But you're 52. You know, you must have found something that you felt you were good at." So there's a legacy that we leave because we don't say that there is a range of options for the brain. And the age group that I typically work with, and that typically is 9 to 16, is they have this opportunity to really start seeing themselves as amazing.
You know, I'm reminded of the number of times as a teacher where it would be a parents' evening and you'd be talking about maths, and the parent would say, "He's not very good at maths," or "She's not very good at maths. He's just like me." And I'd say, "Hold on. You're creating that legacy within your child, that child will believe it's no good at maths and therefore won't try," and would turn to the child and say, "It's not that you're not good at maths, it's that we haven't found the key yet. And when we find the key, you'll be good at maths." And generally speaking, that was the case. So we're very good at conditioning and installing these limiting beliefs in children, when actually, you're quite right. Our brains are magnificent, did you say?
Our minds are magnificent and your brains are brilliant.
So if you're listening to this, whatever age you are, just make that your mantra, that your mind is magnificent and your brains are, what was the term?
Brilliant.
Brilliant, powerful beyond measure.
Yeah, so
Now,
when we did the project at a local primary school and developed a mind safe school, we had to work in collaboration not only with the teachers but the young people.
yeah.
And they had to buy into that. They had to really start believing that working together was the best interests of that school. And when they started seeing the results, so obviously we then had an 8-year-old who was leading mind safe sessions 3 times a day, making sure and using the words, you're going to feel safe. I'm going to keep you safe. You know, your mind is magnificent. Remember, your brain is brilliant. You've got an 8-year-old saying that to a group of their peers, but also to older kids, and a sports day where they did it with the parents. And I think without that collaborative approach, it wouldn't have worked. So if you want to make change, we exist in collaboration. You know, you don't have a cup of tea because there isn't collaboration, because somebody had to farm those beans and get them to you. That's collaborative.
Yeah.
So everything that we receive or do or make or use is done because people have worked in collaboration with each other. So from the simple boiled egg in the morning to, you know, the car that you might drive to work, people have collaboratively worked to get that together so that you're able to enjoy it or use it. So I think that's why collaboration is so important, because we don't see that as collaboration. We just see the end product. But if you think about the steps it took to get that product to you, that's a perfect example of collaboration.
You know, I'd like to take this conversation up a gear, although I think the conversation we've had has been great. It's my belief, and I'd be very interested in your take, but it's my belief that the world is going through significant churn and transition, and that we are facing all sorts of problems. You mentioned global warming, but there is the economic situation. There are wars and strife, there's poverty, there's just so many different problems. My belief is that the thinking that's got us here isn't going to be the thinking that gets us out of this. But I also believe very strongly that the way forward is with effective collaboration. That individuals can't do this, although we can all make a contribution, but that together we can collaborate and make a difference and find a way through the difficulties that we have. What's your take on that?
I think we can't go on as we are. I think we have a history that was written by a certain group of people for a certain group of people. I think we need to emerge through this time rewriting history that is representative of all. And I think once we start seeing that, how narrow it got and how narrow we became as communities, that we need to open up and start understanding that without help, then we can't sustain life, but also we can't enable change in a way that will allow the world to be healthy for lots of reasons. And I've been interested in this growth and development for myself by looking at history and how it was written and who it was written by and who was the beneficiary of that. But actually, we've not benefited it as a whole. So we need to make sure that we are as inclusive as we can be. So we're all starting from a place of humanness.
It's interesting, isn't it? I had a guest on a few weeks ago called Andrew Pancholi, and his work is all about studying patterns from history and how actually they can predict almost to the month when things are going to happen, because they see these iterations in history, and that the human race has failed to learn so many lessons which are there ready for them to learn if they choose to take them on board. And alongside that, I'm reminded we both belong to an organisation called Collaboration Global, and Jill Tiney, who set up that organisation, has been a guest on the show. And in fact, many of the guests on this show are members of Collaboration Global because they've become great friends and they have they're doing amazing things and that they have a strong message. But I think, people who are listening to us today, whether they're listening on the radio or the TV, or they're listening to a replay a few weeks or months down the line, what are the things that you would say to them around collaboration and kindness that could help them move their agenda forward?
I think, firstly, remember that kindness is an innate part of who we are. We're born kind and we're born compassionate. So it's not about learning a new skill. It's about rediscovering your true nature. And I don't want that to sound touchy-feely. I want it to sound clinical and achievable. So I don't want people to say, oh, but actually, if you really focus on yourself, and if you're being unkind, and we all do it, so I am not perfect in any way, shape or form. If we really focus in on that feeling, we know what that feeling is. But we choose whether people call it a soul or a gut feeling or a feeling deep in their chest when something happens. We know it's there, but we spend a lot of time dismissing it or ignoring it. And I would encourage people just to kind of give it a moment and see how that feels. And we know now, because of the advancements in science, is that we know that when you're kind to somebody, you get the benefits more than the person that you're being kind to. So we know it's good for you. So we know the flip side of that is true, is that if you are unkind, it's not good for you. And we haven't got time to go into why that is, but people can go and look that up. So if you are kind, and not just kind to other human beings, but just kind to the environment or kind to pets or kind to anybody, actually we know we get benefit from that, because our body almost is crying out for that, because it's who we are. It's who we are. And I think I would just like people just to give it a go. I mean, I started by, when you're driving and you let somebody out and they don't say thank you, And I probably used to go, but now I just go, it's okay.
Yeah. I think it's the not expecting anything in return, for me, makes the difference. The kindness where there's conditions, for me, is not kindness, that's something else. But when you are kind and you don't expect anything, it's back to the unconditional love, isn't it? It's loving without the conditions, without the strings.
Yeah. And we can't, we know that people have been brought up in difficult circumstances. We know that. And we can't change that. Nobody can change that. But you do have control about how you move forward with that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's, it's something you're going to do overnight, but the little things will help. Even, I don't know, not stepping on an ant. I mean, it's just simple little things that don't cost anything. It doesn't cost a phone. It doesn't cost electricity. It's just, just saying hello. I mean, or just, I don't know, just the little things that you can do every day. And then you just do more of them. And then you find actually life's better because you've done things that you think, I'm really glad I did that for somebody today, because even if it made them smile, then I'm glad it made them smile, because we know that even smiling helps us. And and I say to the kids before I finish, is that can you imagine if you went to school tomorrow and nobody was bullied or nobody was getting, picked on, and it blows their mind because they've not even considered it as a possibility.
I think the opening up the opportunity for people to see there are other possibilities is really important. Kindness, I think, too, many people find that it's so much easier to be kind to other people than to be kind to themselves. And by kind, I don't mean overindulgent, but I do mean, self-care and appreciating, who we are as individuals. But I want to bring it back to collaboration and why, when you combine kindness with people getting together with a like-minded vision of what they want to achieve and similar values, how there is this amazing, it's almost like, putting a spell together, because magic happens. The ingredients go into the cauldron, if you like, and out of that comes something which is very, very different and very powerful.
Yeah, I think when you feel safe, you will come up with your best work.
Yeah.
And that's what collaboration does. A collaboration in a safe place allows you to lower your guard. And it's a lot of energy trying to figure out who's doing what in a room. But if you just accept it, because you're safe, they come from the same perspective from you, and they're going to be kind, and they're going to be honest, but in a way that's not going to be sabotaging of your idea or yourself.
Yeah.
You have this freedom, and your mind and your brain, you release different chemicals, therefore it reaches different parts of your brain, and therefore you use your full capacity. But if you're feeling attacked, then you're going to go into that fight and flight and freeze mode, and therefore your thoughts aren't going to be as global as they could be, because you're coming from a fearful place, not an enhanced creative place. So that's the core to good collaboration, is that you're allowing somebody to be free with their thoughts and ideas. So that allows their brain to function very differently, and probably very differently than it's functioned before.
Yes.
If your normal has been, let's call it a normal corporate boardroom, for want of a better description, but it could be anywhere, and you're fearful about, being, I don't know, put your head above the parapet or saying something that people are going to laugh at, then your brain isn't going to respond in a way that's your most creative self. And it allows the imagination to flow. And we know that if you imagine something, it's more likely to happen. So it allows these things to grow and develop in a safe way. And without safe collaboration, that's very difficult.
It's interesting, isn't it? I work a lot with leaders in a whole range of contexts. And quite a lot of the time, what we're talking about is how they manage the politics, small p, within any organization. And at the heart of that is the fear of, as you say, being laughed at or not being valued, or that somebody will steal their idea and so they won't get the credit for it, or that somebody is going to quash their ideas before they've got started, or any number of things. And I think that puts people on the back foot when they're constantly looking over their shoulder. A bit of a mixed metaphor there. But when you've got really good quality collaboration where people have, and I think there are certain conditions. For me, one is that they've got a shared goal, a shared vision. This is what we want to achieve, and this is why it's important. So the why becomes absolutely invaluable within any collaboration. I was talking about a family, collaborating within the family so that the family can operate and nobody's carrying the whole of the heavy load. Collaborating within an organization so you achieve your goals and profitability, or collaboration between organizations so that you can further each of your visions and your goals together. But when there are shared values, and I think that's so important, that actually people understand that it's a safe place where there is integrity, where people will be kind, where there is an expectation you're going to work hard, but ultimately if you're not feeling very well, that somebody will notice and support and help you, then collaboration can work really well.
Yeah, I mean, without it, you can't move things forward in a way that's going to be the best outcome. So in terms of business, I spend a lot of time looking at how other people lead teams, and they don't lead teams, they manage teams. And I think there's a massive difference, as you know.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Jeannie, is that I see a lot of people who manage teams, who micromanage teams, who want to micromanage teams, but I see very few leaders, because leadership is a freedom within certain boundaries, but it's a freedom to allow your staff to shine.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a special person to say, I'm really happy the app that we've just developed, a lot of the work that was done by somebody else, but also it was done by one of my colleagues. And without him, it wouldn't have got to where it's got. So, I don't take credit for that, but I wanted him to shine because he was great and his ideas were brilliant. And without that ability to allow him to kind of discover and move and make some mistakes and go, that's okay, let's look at that in a way that he felt safe, we wouldn't have been able to launch the app on Saturday. So I think that fundamentally what you've said is absolutely correct, but I think we have a lot of people who manage and don't lead.
I think you're right. And ultimately creating self-actualizing, self-organizing collaborative teams has to be the way forward. If it's all reliant upon you micromanaging, it's going to stay very limited and very small. It can only grow and expand and evolve when you have people who are engaged together collectively and creatively, taking things forward.
Yeah.
So where can people find you, and what sort of things can your charity do for them?
So we are at absafe.org.uk. My email address is louise@absafe.org.uk. We can help people with health and safety, like how you educate kids around health and safety. We do a lot of work on cybersecurity, mental well-being. We also have a game that we're going to kind of hopefully get finished and completed by Christmas, so people can kind of really get involved in how to stay safe in certain aspects of their life, in, like, say, sit around a table and start playing board games again with family members or friends. And or they can just kind of like give us a look, kind of come and have a chat with us. I think ultimately our goal, as I said at the beginning, is if we just want people to be excited that we can save young people's lives. And we're a very small charity, and that allows us to be very flexible in what we do. But ultimately we can help people really understand how they can make the best of their experience by just really looking at kindness as a core value of what they do and how they show up every day.
Well, thank you for that. And I know that there are many people who are working with children who are really concerned, particularly around mental resilience, And we hear so many horror stories, don't we, of young people committing suicide because they can't see another way forward. And so I believe that building in kindness to self and others and resilience is a really good antidote. If you can give them that self-confidence and self-belief, then hopefully we can actually plug the dam of all of these wonderful beings who are ending their lives in such a tragic way.
I mean, it's devastating, but we get 4-year-olds who are able to do mind safe sessions. So they're able 3 times a day to have 2 minutes where they're sitting quietly, thinking about their minds, thinking about how they feel, learning to give feedback and taking feedback at 4, 5, and 6. So we do that kind of day in, day out, because we know that we need to make sure our kids become more resilient by the time they get to an older stage where maybe they are feeling overwhelmed and they don't know what to do. So yeah, I mean, all those things with the outcome of just saving kids' lives is just, I'm going to call it an obsession, because it is.
And I'm glad to hear it, because we need some people to have that as an obsession, because there's just so many children struggling. We're reaching the end of our time together. And one of the things that we always do, is very proud members of B1G1, Buy One, Give One, is we donate on behalf of our guests to one of the many projects that B1G1 have got going around the world. The 4 projects on offer this month are Feeding the Hungry, Clean Water, Education, and there is a project helping young children in the Ukraine. So which of those would you like us to donate to on your behalf?
Definitely the Ukraine. I've got no words for that, and honestly, I try and send love and kindness every day. So definitely Ukraine would be great, and very much appreciated that you do that.
We will be sending that together with the other donations. We do it once a month at the end of the month. So thank you very much. And it just remains for me to say a huge thank you for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I shall speak to you soon.
Thanks, Gina. Thanks for the opportunity. And yeah, you still look amazing.
Thank you. Don't go away. We haven't finished the show yet. We will see you in just a moment. Thanks, Louise.
You have been listening to Gina Gardner on Leadership for Life. We'll be back after this quick break. Want to get the best out of life personally and professionally? Are you ready to step into a life which excites and fulfills you? Well, the right place for you is Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. We will share with you stories from inspiring people, a wide range of guest experts, and lots of practical strategies to help you get the very best out of your personal and professional life. Leadership for Life is a radio and TV show focused on helping you live a happier, more successful, and fulfilling life. Join international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer, Gina Gardner, live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Become the leader of your own life. Gina Gardner's #1 international best-selling book, Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success, and Fulfillment, provides you with the foundational principles on which to become the best leader of your own life. It's available as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and as an audio from genuinely-u.com, or also from Amazon. Every one of the principles have been proven to work for the countless people who have used them, including the author. Now, let's put them to work for you. If you're ready to discover your true leadership life design, accelerate your journey with an invitation to join Gina for Leadership for Life VIP Day. Choose your journey of self-discovery where Gina will help you navigate your way to happiness, success, and fulfillment. To find out more, email gina@genuinely-u.com. Welcome back to Leadership for Life. Here is your host, Gina Gardner.
Hi there. I want to spend the last bit of the show talking to people who are either aspiring leaders or who are existing leaders. And to say to you, we are living in very challenging times, and it's important that your business is profitable. But ultimately, those people who are going to not only create and sustain greatest profitability are those who do it holistically. And I'd like to invite you to join me for a VIP day or weekend. It doesn't have to actually be at the weekend. It could be a 2-day, to work one-on-one to help you understand the principles of creating a collaborative, self-actualizing team, getting the best out of your staff so that you can create greater profitability in a holistic way, but also have a huge impact on your bottom line. So if you're interested in really developing yourself as an enlightened leader and making the difference to your team, then email me at gina@genuinely-you.com. That's Gina, Gina, @genuinely-you.com. Now, I've got a long track record of helping leaders within business create greater financial profitability through creating greater holistic profitability. And for me, it's all about leading yourself first as your leader, and then walking your talk and setting clear expectations and holding people to account, but doing it through example. So if it's something you're interested in, remember Gina@genuinely-you.com. On Amazon, you'll find lots of intentional journals and books there to help you. Just go to my author page, Gina Gardner, and you will find a whole range of books designed to help you. There is a whole series, Enlightened Emerging Leader, Enlightened Limitless Leader, Enlightened Profitable Leader, and Enlightened Authentic Leader is one set of books. But there are also books for those of you who are just starting out in your working life, kickstart your career, and for people who are managing others, manage your staff more effectively. Ultimately, if you want things to be better, don't wait for other people to make them better. Recognize, sorry, I need to put my teeth in. Recognize that power lies with you. You can make a qualitative difference to the way in which you operate and to your work-life balance and to those who you work with. But you have to be the person who takes radical responsibility for you. And I'd love to help you do that. So if you're interested, email me. If you'd like to know more, go and look at one of the websites. But ultimately, remember, you are the leader of your own life. And it's up to you in your personal life and your professional life to do things in a way that give you the best quality of life and those around you. So I wish you the very, very best of luck. But whatever you decide to do, remember you're the leader of your own life and you can help yourself. So thanks very much for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Bye-bye now.
You have been listening to The Leadership for Life with your host, Gina Gardner. Make sure you tune in to W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV next Thursday and every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for more Leadership for Life. If you missed any part of this episode or just want to hear or see it again, you can find the archive of the TV show on Talk 4 TV's YouTube channel and the podcast of The Leadership for Life on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever you listen to your podcast.